Hello, good morning, everyone. And for those who are watching us from different time zones, good evening, at least for the person I'm interviewing today, and good afternoon. My name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS, and we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating customized programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, and that includes Petronas, Sony Mobile, PruLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing this intervention is for us, including this interview, of course, to be able to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the next normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and possibly for those who are afraid that they can't keep their team or their business. So to continue to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively in any situation, do join us in this intervention. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce the leader for today, or that I will be interviewing. And it's really I'm really super excited because she's also one of my business mentors, one of the first, I would say. Alessia Minkus is a multi-award winning entrepreneur that has started and run nine of her own seven and eight companies over the last sorry 7 and 8 figure companies over the last 20 years, generating a total of $500 million in revenue. During the past 10 years, she has traveled the world speaking on global stages and organizing thousands of events for her own global business training company called Industry Rockstar. Her leadership and scaling system have impacted over 3 million business owners online and offline, and she has personally mentored thousands of entrepreneurs privately, setting them up with the 7 and 8 figure strategy. And she's often invited to speak on the topics of leadership, revenue expansion, business scaling strategies, and has partnered or shared stage with icons like Sir Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, Randy Zuckerberg, Kevin Harrington, and more. Alessia's passion is to advise female founders on leadership and revenue optimization, to support her mission to close the revenue gap in female entrepreneurship globally. So, without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Alessia. Hi, Alessia.
And wow, thank you so much. This is a great introduction. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's great. And great to see you again. We haven't been able to see each other in the last couple of years, but we have been working together for years. So great to see you here, and thank you for having me.
Yes, exactly. And I'd like to share with them, like, I would say that the mentorship program that I'm in with you and Kane is the best mentorship program ever been to. And I'm still like benefiting from the program, having access to you and Kane, with, even you've pivoted online from previously, offline sessions and programs that you've been organizing with us. I'm really grateful. And thank you for like accommodating me to have you here in my show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That was a great pleasure. And, you already started to mention some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years that definitely have impacted organizations all over, like, going remotely and, having to connect with people in different ways that the one that we have been used to in the past. So we are right into the conversation already.
Exactly. So to start with, we would actually want to understand better from which perspective you're coming from. Um, and then we move to the, I would say, the juicy part, like what Kane would always say, the 4 to 6 question. And of course, the last two questions will be very interesting because these are very open questions. And I would like very much excited to know what will be your answers to these Miss Universe questions that I would ask later on. So, to start with, please do share with us your leadership experiences, your influencers, and if you do have a leadership style or favorite leadership style that you would use from the businesses that you have. Do share with us, please.
Well, thank you. It's a great question. So, well, my leadership experience, I would say it starts back, 20 years ago when I stepped, like seriously stepped into an 8-figure company and, like overnight started running it and found myself with almost 100 people in staff and looking at me to lead them, and I had zero experience. So that's where it all started. That was my family company that I took over, now over 20 years ago, when my dad had a heart attack. And I took that over, and while understanding, like true, actually, I would say true understanding what leadership actually is, what it meant to me, and how to lead my team, we were able in just a few short years to triple the company, going
Wow.
from 10 million euro in revenue per year to 30 million revenue per year. So that was a big shift. And it's not so much, I mean, it is about sales, it is about marketing, it is about positioning, of course, like, business is a holistic system, but it is so much about leadership. And that's why I'm so passionate about the topic, because understanding leadership principles and understanding how to lead my team and how to lead myself has been critical to creating those results in that one. It was my first company, and then as well in being able to reproduce that, as you said, I have started and run 9 of my own companies that have been in actually 3 different continents, in many different industries, with complete different teams. And I think that, again, understanding the key is to getting a team to work with you is just like the most important thing in order to create success in a business.
Wow, thank you for sharing with us your leadership experience. And what I really got from you is like, I really like the part you've said that, in any business, yes, there's sales, marketing, there's branding, there's positioning, and yet you've highlighted how leadership is important in doing that. And when you said leadership, it has to be holistic, it has to start from yourself before before leading others. You have to lead yourself most especially. So having said that, based on your experience, how would you define or what is leadership for you?
So that's a great question. Thank you, and it's a great question because so it's Tuesday night here in in the on the west coast of the United States where I live, and I'm actually about to walk tomorrow morning into a 2-day leadership lab that I am
Wow.
delivering for our scaling mastermind. So we have a scaling mastermind where we help business owners understand how to scale their businesses. And of course, we have several pillars, several really topics and areas that we work on with them. And just tomorrow, our leadership lab is coming up. So it's been really, a few weeks of really kind of thinking about these questions. So what is leadership for me? Well, so I think, again, as we said, leadership is a very holistic experience to me.
Mm-hmm.
And while very often we tend to observe leadership as a way that a leader leads their team, I have experienced that leadership starts from within. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually a pretty internal experience initially. And it starts really with how you perceive yourself first. So it starts with all the beliefs, all the thought processes, all the internal conversations that you have about yourself, because those are then the trigger very often to the behavior that people see on the outside, right? So it starts on the inside. And again, it starts on the inside with how you perceive yourself, and then how you perceive others as well, which we create inside of us, has nothing to do with how they behave very often. It's just like our own interpretation, our own perception. We filter it through, again, our beliefs. We filter it through, what we think about the world, about ourselves, about our company. And then, we create meaning out of it. So these are
Mm-hmm.
the first things really internally. And then it starts to actually show up externally in the way you show up as a leader, in the way you actually you behave yourself. And lastly, actually, it's about how you lead your team. So I feel
Mhm.
like how you lead your team is kind of the tip of the iceberg that we all see, but there is so much underneath, that so much work that leaders do on themselves in order to actually show up in that way, that most people are not, they don't see it, because they just don't have access to those moments where leaders actually kind of pull the curtains and share their internal work that is so important as well.
Wow, that's really great. And again, that's a reminder about self leadership. You have to start with yourself. It's all about the belief, the mindset, the perspective that you have, and share, which as you mentioned comes out on the outer or an external way of really like leading others eventually. But again, you have to lead yourself well first before others. And that's also the reason why, like, when I actually like share about leadership, I've always tell them that it has to start with a mindset and heart set, right? Because that's where like what you said, all the actions that you'll take moving forward is coming from like that mindset, that belief, and that perspective that you have in inside. I would say like what you've said, it's more of an inside job, right? So I really love how you share that. And we've talked about, I mean, even before we started live, we were talking about how we miss like seeing each other on a live session, which my business as well are so heavily like on a face-to-face level, I would say. And so but now that we have to pivot online, and I'm glad we've actually met each other at least through here online. So how would you actually define and describe the next normal, probably particularly to the business that you are in?
Yes. So, well, I mean, I can talk about the business that I'm in, and part of the advantage of the business that I'm in is that I actually get to look inside of so many different businesses. Because between the trainings that you have been part of, and then of course the private advisory, in my private advisory, I advise female founders that lead their companies, and I get to actually kind of share with them these intimate moments when they're working on themselves, and as well when they're kind of processing sometimes the behavior that they have shown on the outer. So I get to have this perspective, which is very it's very beautiful. It's one of the things that I love about my work, and not just about what happens inside of my company, but as
Mhm.
well getting to see what happens inside of so many different companies all around the world. I mean, my clients span from Singapore and Southeast Asia to Europe to the States to Australia. So I feel like I have a window on the world that is still open despite everything that has happened during the last 2 years. So you're asking about like the next normal and the next evolution, etc. And I think there are two main things that come to my mind in terms of like really identifying trends in this next evolution of business. And I think that we're really looking, first of all, at a new paradigm of business that is emerging, that is founded really on more integrated leadership. So you asked me at the beginning,
Mhm.
part of your question was what is the leadership style that I'm more connected to, etc. And I didn't actually answer that part of the question, because I feel like today it's very difficult to answer that, especially for me and for many leaders out there, because what is emerging is more of, again, this integrated leadership, a leadership where it's not about choosing a style, it's not about having a right and a wrong, but it's more about kind of collecting tools that you can use in the appropriate situation. It's about being agile, it's about being flexible, it's about responding in an appropriate manner to the situation that you're facing, right? And so it's not so much about choosing a style, but it's about learning from different styles. I always say it's just like, the handyman that comes at home, and it's just like if instead of just having one toolbox, they have two, three, five, six toolboxes. And as they are performing tasks, they can have access to all these tools now. They're not limited to what fit into their little toolbox, because they have many of them, right? And the same things is for leaders today. So we want to actually have many different tools accessible to us, because especially the last 2 years have shown us that you never know what you're going to face. you might find yourself in situations where if you just choose one specific style, one specific toolbox, that might not, give you the appropriate tool to face the situation, the problem, the challenge, or sometimes as well the opportunity that is standing in front of you. So this is really one of the things that I feel it's, it's really representative of the phase that we are, kind of living right now in terms of evolution in business and in leadership. And I see, leaders all over the world. I mean, leaders all over the world have had to kind of embrace new ways to lead their teams, new way to connect with their teams, new way to communicate with their teams, new way to create cultures, new way to create, belonging inside of their team, your new way to create, anything like systems, and everything has changed. And now we are again at the changing point, because 2020, everything that was face to face stopped. Huge learning curve. Everybody had to adapt. Everybody had to pivot. It was hard for many. And then, after 2 years, we kind of got used to that. And now there is this new kind of change, which is how do we integrate now the face to face with all the system that we have created virtually? How do we integrate the desire to be face to face with the desire that now many people in our teams might have in terms of having more flexibility, in terms of not having to do commuting, in terms of being free to live wherever they want. Like now we are facing the next stage as well, where it's again about integration.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. And that's really true for my experience as well. And I'm really grateful that, I have you and Kane as well as, always giving us on how we can pivot, how we can like do things online and move it to offline despite the current situation. And again, like what you've said, it's not really about, just this principle or just making use of like a system or so, but it's really how you can actually integrate all these, both in leadership and like making use of these appropriate tools. And I think the keyword there is using appropriate tools, right? Because there's many that we can use, but we've been hearing around agility, adaptability, which are like somehow we can already call as trends, right? But I mean that's the reality, right? We have to be like agile enough to adapt and embrace those changes that are happening and to be prepared to face whatever um, challenges and opportunities at the same time that we will face, right? So thank you for defining that as if you have like a magic magic ball in front of you. So I mean, even before the next normal that we were referring to, leaders would always like face challenges as well, right? And what would you say would be the top three problems that most leaders do face?
Wow, great question. So, well, I mean, a lot of data shows us that leaders right now, I mean, in corporations, leaders are facing one of the problem is actually recruiting talent that
Mm-hmm.
can be developed into emerging leaders and into the leaders of tomorrow. There
Mm-hmm.
is definitely been a big change in terms of, kind of the dream used to be the secure, uh, a spot in a great company, and it used to be to kind of climb that ladder. And I think that the last 2 years have kind of changed that for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that have learned that that ladder really didn't mean that much in their life when they were faced with fears and concerns about their own kind of survival on some levels, right? Because we have all been pulled back into more of a survival mode, maybe not really practically, but that's how our emotions have actually felt. And we have been like taken away from our communities, taken away from the habits that were defining who we were. We've been taken away from being able to kind of show up the way we were used to showing up. And so once we have been kind of deprived from all this, stripped away, the core is what has been left over. And for a lot of people it's been like, well, like, do I really want to do what I was doing before? Is that really worth it? Is that really all there is? And the result has been the last couple of years, a lot of, again, a lot of data shows up that
Mhm.
it shows that less people are raising their hand for wanting to climb that ladder. And so the first thing is really, I feel, one of the challenges redefining leadership, redefining impact through leadership in our organization in a way that it inspires new young talent to, to apply for that, to fight for it, to desire it, to want to climb that ladder. That's the first thing. And the trickle effect is then, that there is a problem with, retaining, of course, the talent afterwards. Even if we find it, how do we retain it? How don't we just develop it and then, they leave? So those are very, big problems. And I think that in the end it all goes back to really creating that culture and creating that belonging, because we know that when somebody feels that, when somebody is in a situation where they feel that safe space and that belonging, they are not actually even inspired, or don't have the desire to to look for something else, to go out and look for other options. So it's really about creating that safe space where people feel like they feel heard, they feel understood, they feel valued, not despite the differences, but because of the differences, and therefore they can shine and bring their creativity and bring the innovation and bring the contribution that companies are looking for.
Wow, that's really great piece of information that we got from you. And again, it's all about, I would say what I got from your message is really around like really giving importance to people, from recruiting them, retaining them, training them, and creating that culture to have that feeling of belonging, like what you've mentioned, right? And I would say that in the last 2 years it has been, um, I would say, been a huge realization for most organizations. Like, uh, you're working with human, you're working with people, and these might have like families of their own as well. Um, and also like a lot of them, like I would say that trust has been like one of the huge um, problem when we started working with remote working, or now mostly I guess it's on hybrid working or setting, right? And again, it's all about what you've said on creating that safe spaces, the culture within the organization, to feel really safe that, oh, we're trusted, we belong here, we're family, we're a community, and we're working on the same vision and goals, right? That we wanted to like see
Yeah,
in
well,
our organization.
and there is a fact that organizations for a long time have actually operated as if their own vision, accomplishing their own goals, was primary, and the individual vision, individual goals were secondary. So there was actually a prioritization that said, we work for the company, and the individual goals are like, left behind. And if they fit in, then it works. If not, like, the company comes first. And today it's really about instead changing that, and they
Mhm.
become just equally important. And we need to make sure that the individual team members find individual meaning, personal meaning, in contributing to the company's vision. If not, it doesn't work. There is a breakdown of leadership, a breakdown of culture, and therefore then a breakdown of systems, and the company can't achieve the heights, the greatness that they could otherwise.
Exactly. And I remember that conversation I had with Dave Ulrich last week, where he said, like, it has to work hand in hand, like the people and the organization and the leaders actually driving that.
Yeah.
So that it has to be like what you said, it's somehow like integrated, right, within the organization, both the purpose and the goals or visions of individual people working with you, as well as the company's vision and values. I would say vision, mission, and values as well. So before I proceed to my next question, I'd like to invite everyone, especially those who are watching us live, to feel free to share with us your questions, your comments. What are you getting from us as well? So do join us in this conversation. This is not just for us, but also for you. Like, we want you to get as much out of this conversation. So feel free to like join us in this conversation by asking your question or giving us your takeaway as well. So yeah, and so that leads me to my next question. I mean, you've identified for us the top problems that most leaders do face, and so what's next? I mean, we need to answer or like somehow help them address that by sharing with us, like, what do you believe is the important leadership capabilities and skills that leaders must have in this next normal to continue to lead effectively?
Yeah, so that's great. And I think that it goes down really to probably three really important things, which is, again, the ability to lead with authenticity. I mean, there has been a big change, and everything in our culture. I mean, it's not even just in business, but everything in our culture has led towards more authenticity. I mean, starting from social media, that has
Mhm.
given us a window inside of everybody's life that we didn't have you know 15 years ago. It wasn't there, and so we didn't know what our leader, our CEO, our CFO, etc., was doing in their personal time. Today we know, and that has changed the dynamics of how we perceive our leaders, what we expect from them, and the authenticity that we are requesting in order to really let them lead. So I think this is the first thing, like really being authentic, being committed to communication, to clarity, to transparency first. I think it's really important for leaders. Brene Brown, of course, does a lot of about talking about like vulnerability and presenting and helping leaders understand how vulnerability is a strength, it's not a weakness, and it's really helping us in connecting with our team, connecting with everybody, with our market, with everybody for that matter, right? So
Mhm.
that's one of the things that are important, really, that commitment to authenticity, vulnerability, and transparency, because today our teams, our suppliers, our markets, etc., everybody is looking at us, is requesting that in order to create that trust, right? So that's one of the things that is important. The second thing, I think, that is all about resilience. We said, being agile and really like being able to succeed in face of complexity, in face of adversity, in face of change. We are in a very fluid, kind of era, very, very fast changing time in history. And so as leaders, we need to be able to be resilient for ourselves and as well develop that in our team, right? Create a team. In order for a team to be high performing today, it needs to be a resilient team, it needs to be an agile team, it needs to be a flexible team, because we can't just find one way to work and then kind of think that will be it. We need to be constantly open to changes, to adapting and doing it fast. It's not even just about kind of adapting to change, but we need to adapt fast. That's part of what determines the success of a team today. Just like, again, we talked about March 2020, everything shut down. The teams that have been able to adapt the faster have been able to capitalize on big opportunities, because every time we have challenges, we have opportunities as well. But we need to
Exactly.
be able to actually, get them. So I think those are really the most important things, right? It's really important that authenticity to lead, and that resilience to kind of come back from setbacks. But unfortunately, we are as well facing, a future where setbacks, changes, uncertainty, is kind of like, will probably be in our future. Scientists already tell us, climate change, possible pandemics, possible, changes in the environment and the way we know it, will determine the fact that we need to adapt. We need to really kind of train that muscle of resilience in order not only to survive, but to thrive in our life and, of course, in business as well.
Wow, thank you. So, did I get it right? It's leading with authenticity, resilience, that too.
Yes,
Or am I missing anything? Just making sure.
I think those are the most important things that I've seen right now, right? In terms of in terms of being able to lead. And if I would need to mention a third one, is definitely inclusion, right? So important as well. I mean, you know, making sure that we don't, I mean, we talk so much about inclusion in terms, of course, of gender inclusion, but as well in terms of cultural inclusion. And um, one of the things that we are passionate about is international and intercultural business and teams and partnerships, etc. And so it's not just about inclusion. It's not about inviting people to the table. Inclusion is about making them feel heard, valued, for what they are contributing to that conversation, right? And it hasn't been the traditional, included in many traditional leadership styles. It's been, in many of them, it was more, about being kind of, you are the leader, you have the answers, you have the and it's very different from what we're experiencing today. It's really about, again, having that team feel like they're co-creating. I mean, beautifully you showed that even earlier as you were inviting people. You said, we are here, ask questions, contribute, engage. That's part of what we are seeing today as leadership. It's that inclusion, that co-creation. It's not, we don't expect the leader to set the stage and to have all the answers and to dictate how things go. We expect to have a situation where the team and the leader together, and very often the market, together with the team, together with the C-suite, together with the leaders, are actually co-creating the future of that company, from the products, the offers they are going to bring to the market, to the
Yes.
positioning, to the influencers they might partner with. Everything is actually co-created together as a vision, holistically. So this is a very big shift as well.
Exactly. And again, you've made mention again about authenticity, which basically tells us about our commitment to our team, to other people, to our customers, in terms of how we communicate our vision, how we communicate updates to them, right? And you've mentioned earlier about that safe space, and without authenticity, I think this couldn't happen, right? And with all the challenges that we're facing, and for sure that we will continue to face, the key is really to have that resilience, to be able to adapt, to be able to be agile enough to face that challenges or turn it around into opportunities, right? Because like what you've said, it's always like together. If there's challenges, there's definitely opportunities that comes in. And of course, most importantly, and this is a conversation I recently have also about with the client. She's wanting me to organize something around inclusions, diversity and inclusions. And the positive thing about having this all these inclusions and diversity is really like about leveraging on everyone's strength, right?
Yeah,
and
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 everybody's background and strength and personality. I mean, so many preconceptions,
Mhm,
we used to have in business, right? I mean, somebody that was, I don't know, maybe somebody was more outgoing, somebody was more introvert, wasn't as valuable, or somebody was an
mhm,
extrovert and more outgoing, because in business you need to be. And today we are learning how that, has nothing to do with success and contribution in terms of
mhm.
results. How, again, it's really like everybody can bring something valuable to the table. It's about including. And I had this conversation, funny enough, with my daughter today, and it was being fair, being including, being like valuing everybody doesn't mean actually like putting everybody in the same spot. It means putting them in a spot where they can shine, which is different for everybody. It's about recognizing the differences, recognizing the strength and the weaknesses of each individual, and position them. Just like, I mean, I come from Italy, so just like in a soccer team, where you're positioning your players carefully based on everybody's strengths and weakness, and together they form a very strong team. If everybody is in the right spot, if everybody would be in the same spot, that would make no sense at all, right? It's not about sameness. It's about instead leveraging that diversity and creating the winning team by really recognizing how to have everybody shine.
Yeah, and then that reminds me, last night we watched again this, because I have a 5 year old, so he keeps on watching the same movies over and over again. And we were watching We Can Be Heroes in Netflix, and like I don't know how many times we've watched that, but it's basically it talks about teamwork and having that inclusions, like what you said. It's not about that one superpower or who's the strongest among all, right? It's about how we can work together, how can we collaborate, how can we you know have that. And then I remember also this conversation in a summit that I recently attended about like how can we actually bring joy within the organization. And that's basically having that feeling of belonging and having that inclusion within the organization, leveraging on, oh, I'm happy to do this. It's my joy to to bring out my strength
Hmm.
through the things that I do on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
And and it doesn't have to be like anything special. It's just something that you do on a daily basis, right? And yeah,
Yes.
so
I mean, and look at big companies like Disney, right? That has been really kind of shaping a little bit the way we see the world, especially as little children. Look at their latest movies. I don't know, even Frozen 2, where it's not anymore about one hero. It's about the contribution, right? These two
yeah.
sisters and actually the whole little team. Everybody's contributing to the success of that story. Raya and the Lost Dragon as well. Like, it's about, it's not about one person saving the world or one person saving somebody else. It's about this whole team. Like, until they trust each other and they understand how to leverage each other's talents, they are not able to solve that. So we are seeing that more and more as our representation in many different, aspects as well around us, because it's really an emerging trend, and it's really important for everybody to kind of step into this new framework in order to operate from that place.
Exactly. And it's really true even to the like movies for our children, right?
Yeah.
It's really about like getting the lessons out of those even movies for children, right? And that's obvious for
I mean,
us
I have,
like
I have three
small.
kids, so I am very, very tuned into movies for the kids. And yes, and we moved definitely. That's what I want to say. Like, it's a completely different paradigm. If you
Mhm.
remember the classics, it was about the prince coming on the white horse and saving the princess. And it was that hero that was saving the day and solving
Mhm.
the whole challenge that had been developed during the movie. Today is not like that anymore. Today we have, all sorts of movie. Coming from, Paw Patrol for really like toddlers. Even that, it's all about a team, right? It's all about the team
Exactly.
working together and every individual contributing their special talent, their special gift to the resolution of the challenge that they're facing. So it's a complete different, way to lead, that
Mhm.
we have to embrace. And as adults, our kids are growing up into that paradigm. As we said, they have been
Yes.
unconsciously trained every single day. But as adults, we are the leaders today, and we have to adapt, we have to change, we have to, evolve the way we
True.
lead. Because again, when we were growing up, those were not the messages that we were exposed to. It was
Exactly.
different. So we need to recognize the change, adapt to it, and evolve our leadership style in order to embrace it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And before I proceed to the next question, I just want to acknowledge and thank Sophia and William for sending us some love. And also a comment here. Okay, from Leonidas Rodriguez saying, "Good job, friends." Thank you so much for sharing with us your comment. Feel free to ask any question or join us or engage with us. Give us the lessons that you're getting out of this conversation, or like ask your questions if there's anything. So thank you for engaging with us live. And so that leads me to the question. We've been talking about around mainly on leadership, I would say, and even that transformation. So what do you believe will be the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in order to thrive in the next normal?
Well, great question, and I think that we have kind of established that a little bit. My
Yeah.
answer will probably not be a surprise, but I mean, I've always believed in continuous learning. It's been one of the staple of my own like life, and what I teach to my kids is like you're never done learning. I believe that's the beauty of life, right? Life is beautiful because we keep learning, we keep evolving. That's we keep kind of like change, as we always say, change is the only constant, right? So
Yes.
in the future, again, as we said before, it looks like change will be faster, and we have already experienced that. If we think about our parents' generation, things were pretty much the same for a long time, and then a change would happen, and then it would stay the same for a long time, and then a new change. Today we're in a super fast changing world. Even the fact that we're so interconnected means that any change that happens anywhere around the world we're exposed to. It wasn't like that 50 years ago. We were only exposed to what was happening in our little backyard. And so change wasn't as fast and as prominent as it is today. So
Mhm.
it's definitely becoming more and more important, to really be again that agile leader that we are talking about earlier on. And the only way to be that for real, to really embody that, is through continuous learning, because we cannot face continuously new situations unless we train for them, right? We need to train ourselves on how to adapt. We need to train ourselves on how to react, and we need as well to train ourselves on how instead to create
Mhm.
the environment, the situation that we need to thrive, even if it might not be given to us exactly as we need it. How do we actually create in times of, again, adversity, in times of change, in times of complexity? How do we stay creative? How do we keep innovating, etc.? So I think that, again, learning, we are seeing that already. If you think again, our parents, I mean, our grandparents used to have a way shorter education time in their life, and then they were done and they would go off to the work world, and they would kind of contribute with the talents that they had acquired as they were growing up. Then there was our parents, and that education time in their life already kind of extended. And then it comes to us where the education time never ends. Now it's not about going to school, it's not about just going to school and kind of going through university. It's not about going to school, going through university, and having then some sort of MBA. It's about continuing to learn really on a daily basis, which is why platforms like LinkedIn and platforms like any source of education, training, etc. I mean, again, in the last 2 years online, we have been literally able to learn, if you want, every single day from multiple different teachers and experts from all around the world. So it's just about that desire and willingness and commitment to learn, because the offer is huge right now. I mean, look at YouTube, look at Udemy. These platforms that are based on learning are just booming, because it is more and more and more important, and it will become more and more and more important in the coming years.
Wow, we cannot highlight more that how important continuous learning is, right? So, thank you for sharing that with us. And again, it's I would say the secret recipe to continuously evolve, like what you say, to stay creative, and to have that agility and adaptability in the with the fast changing environment that we're facing right now. And continuous learning will definitely be key. And I'd like to bring in the comment uh, from Leonidas Rodriguez. It is very necessary to bring more people to the next level. Yes, that's very true, I would say. Thank you for sharing that with us. And if you have a question, feel free to share with us as well. So that leads me to my two interesting questions. First is, if you have a magic wand and can use it. So as if we are still in this fairy and very a childish or childlike experience of having that magic one. And if you can use it, what will you do with it?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. It definitely has to do with diversity. So,
Mm-hmm.
again, I have two kids. I have three kids. One is my stepchild, and I have two kids that I've seen really like come to the world, and I see evolving from these little beings that can't do anything to beautiful kids that are now, and I can't wait to see the adults that they're going to evolve into. Now, as I look at them, they're my kids are a boy and a girl, and I remember at some point I was looking at them, watching them play, and I found myself hoping, wishing that my daughter one day would have the same amount of role models in business then I know that my son will have in terms of like masculine role models. And that actually doesn't just stop at feminine and masculine role model, feminine leaders and masculine leaders, but it goes beyond that into really like my wish, if I would have a magic wand, is to create even more diversity in the in the role models, the leadership role models that we have. As I was growing up, and as I started to lead my business, as I told you, at 19 years old, I remember that. I mean, being a woman, being 19 years old, it meant that most times at most tables, I was the only woman and definitely the youngest, right? And I didn't feel like I belonged, and I didn't feel like I felt for a long time. The meaning that I made out of that was that in order to succeed in business, I needed to become somebody else. I needed to embrace more of a masculine and mature way of being. It's been a huge internal journey for me to get to the place of instead understanding the strength and the value that I was bringing with my diversity. And of course, just like we were saying before, that's why I feel like leadership starts within, because only after I was able to process that within me, I was able to then communicate it, you know, outside, communicate it to others that weren't myself, and actually having them see that value, see that that benefit, see that advantage that they were having by having me sit at these tables, being different. And so, one of my passions is really to keep highlighting different leaders, just different, diverse, right? Diverse backgrounds, diverse leadership styles, diverse cultures, diverse gender, like whatever. I feel like we need to learn that becoming a successful leader is not about becoming somebody that is different than who we are. It's not about, changing who we are, changing how we show up. It is about, showing up authentically and really finding a way to inspire others and finding a way to make that contribution. But we don't need to change who we are. And the only way, in my opinion, to do that is to start to have, these role models being more diverse. So that's if I would have a magic wand, I would have like a million of different leaders that can be role models coming from all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different industries, with all sorts of different visions. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like in the in our kind of mainstream, we tend to reward and to look up to a very specific type of leader.
True.
Instead, I would love for that to kind of expand and for a future generation to have much more diverse role models to look up to, so that they can understand that everyone can be a leader. It's just about finding that pathway for themselves, but they don't need to give up on who they are.
That's really a beautiful message, Alessia, to really be able to create diversity in leadership role models. And again, I mean, I even without the magic one, I would say this is already something that you've been doing with the work that you do. in your own, reimagining leadership as heels on deals, and even the work that you do in the industry rockstar. I mean, like, I'm so amazed. One of the things that I'm really grateful for being part of the community or of your mentorship program is really the network or the communities that we have, how diverse it is, how amazing the people are in the community, and it's global. I mean, like, nowadays being global is like, I think one of the easiest thing to do, right? As well.
It's a necessity, right? I mean, first of all, we always say we are not even competing locally anymore. I mean, as I said before, no, in the past we were exposed only to the change that was happening in our backyard. We were exposed only to the competitors that were local to us. Today, that's not true anymore, right? So today
Exactly.
we are compared to competitors that might be all over the world, that might have different advantages because of the different just cultural, network and and background, and so we need to actually learn how to really value the diversity. If not, it will become actually a disadvantage. We will perceive it as a disadvantage while it's a huge richness. We
Mhm.
just need to learn how to really value that, how to benefit from it, how to really kind of manage it in a way that helps everybody, as I said, like shine, helps everybody contribute. I mean, everybody has a desire to contribute, right? So if we
Exactly.
create an environment where our team members, our suppliers, our partners, our clients can win, then we will create a community that is really strong, that is really has a really strong sense of belonging, and that will help us win at any game, including the game of business.
Mm-hmm. And that reminds me of what you said earlier, that it has to be co-created, right? And that increases as well that accountability to be able to not only participate, to not only to be able to contribute, but to have that uniqueness, or the vision that everyone is like integrating into one, right? And that's gonna be beautiful, right? Yeah, so thank you. I really love what you've shared around diversity, and again, it's something that you've been already doing with the work that you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's my mission in life. So, and again, it's so connected to my own story. I've been, kind of like experiencing the other side of the coin, like when that does not happen, when you don't have those role models. And so it's been my mission in life, when I understood the value of diversity. It's been my mission in life to help leaders emerge, that are from diverse background, that are in different industries, that might even, kind of cross different industries or different cultures, and therefore bring value or systems or beliefs or whatever that I've learned in one industry, in one culture, etc., and bring it somewhere else and create something beautiful out of that. So it's really
Yes.
something I'm very passionate about.
Wow, thank you, thank you. So that leads me now to my last question. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And since you can best answer it, please do answer it for us as well.
So definitely the most difficult question. I mean, on some levels, I feel like what we just discussed, would be part of my answer, but we just discussed it. So as I was thinking about that, one thing that comes to my mind, one thing that I am definitely, I mean, again, I've been passionate and I have dedicated, the last 20 plus years, is really about how to help the transition from entrepreneur and business owner to a leader. It's a very specific transition that entrepreneurs and business owners need to go through. Right, when we start a business, very often we are visionaries. Like, we have this big vision that we want to achieve. We are innovators. We are disruptors. But we are as well in a position where we almost kind of fight for, for our own life, like for the life of our idea to win. Now, there is a moment in every business where that approach needs to transition into more of a leadership approach, into more, instead of being us out there against the world, right? Like pushing and defending our idea, our product, our service, our innovation, etc., to instead creating that community. And again, it's not even just about our team in terms of, the people that work for us, but it is about that whole universe that we need to show up as a leader, because we need to show up as a leader to our team, but we need to show up as a leader to our partners. We need to show up to as a leader to our suppliers, and we need to show up as a leader to our market. If not, the whole thing doesn't work, right? So at some point we need to transition, and that transition is very hard because it requires us to experience our place in the world as a different way, as a different one. It requires us to have an identity change, an identity switch. That's one of the things that I'm particularly passionate about. And again, one of the things that we help business owners do constantly, both in our group programs. Again, that's one of the conversations we're having tomorrow in
Mhm.
our leadership lab inside of our scaling mastermind. And as well, this is one of the things that I work on privately with female entrepreneurs all over the world, like when they arrive to a certain place, which very often is about, for most businesses, and of course like tech, etc., might be different, but most businesses, like when they pass that 7-figure mark, they need to start to think differently. It's not so much about, again, fending for their life. It's not so much about focusing so much on getting more visibility, on getting more clients. It becomes more about building that community, building that team, actually showing up as a leader, enrolling other people in their vision, inspiring them, empowering, leaders to step into leadership positions and carry on their work and their vision so that it can create a bigger impact than what it would be if it would be only, about the individual entrepreneur. So that is really an important transition, and a very critical one and a very sensitive one, and something that, again, I'm very passionate about. And actually, in terms of that specific conversation, we have written a book about scaling a business, and there is a whole chapter that I have written that is about really leadership and that evolution from business owner to leader, that we need to go through, and how to embrace it, and how to make sure that we are actually really showing up in that way, in order to, again, create that multiplying impact that we want to create in the world.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that question and also for answering that question for us. And again, whether you are in a B2B market, B2C market, or if you're whether you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or a leader within your organization, it's what you just have to do is to show up as a leader, right? That's
Yeah,
what I'm also getting from your message. It's because, like, if you are as authentic as possible, if you are like on a mission to and passionate about helping others as well, um make all those mission, vision, and values come out and integrated together, I would say that's gonna be like about really taking onto leadership, right?
yeah, that's right. That's true. And showing up is the foundation of leadership, right?
Exactly.
We have a pyramid of leadership, and the first step is being present, showing up. And today we have had to redefine what being present mean, and how to be present when we are not in each other's presence. So in, redefining that step as well. Everything is constantly changing again. So really showing up and staying open, being, open to the change, open to, the challenges, and really, again, that's why it's as well such an internal process. It's about really conditioning yourself to look at the challenges from different perspectives, because if you do, at some point you will see the opportunity that is hidden behind the challenge. But we need to really condition ourselves to approach the challenges with curiosity, keeping, kind of shifting our perspective until we are able to clearly see the opportunity that lays beyond the challenge.
Wow, thank you for that message. Before we end this interview, is there anything more that you'd like to share or to leave our audience with?
No, I mean, I think that, I mean, we discussed such important, deep, and critical topics for leadership. Again, my desire and my message for everyone is, don't let somebody else define who you should be in order to make the impact that you feel called to make. Just really like take that first step. The first step is showing up. The first step is really getting that clarity about the impact that you want to make, and show up, and stay authentic, stay who you are, and you will attract the right people that really believe in the same mission, in the same impact, in the same, they want to make the same difference, and therefore they will join you, not because they think you are somebody that you're not, but because they truly connect with who you are at your core, and that will create the strongest foundation for your business, your organization, your message to spread.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for showing up for us. I really appreciate this very authentic and awesome conversation, which I expected already knowing you. So, thank you so much. And for our audience, thank you for joining us. And for those who will be sharing or watching us on a replay, feel free to give your comments, your learning. And thank you so much for sharing this journey with us to create more opportunities to leave the world that we wanted to see, right? And remember, even the richest investors in the world say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. And with that, we would like to leave you with this quote that if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, Alessia, and thank you everyone for joining us. So, bye for now,
Thank you.
and see
Bye.
you again.